Now, so not Spring, yeah, Hibernate, go where we are, yeah. So first cache means. So what is cache? Cache is also a one type of memory. Okay. So let's say we are getting some data from some database. Okay. Let's say every time you are hitting same query and then you are getting the data. Okay. Let's say for each time it is taking at least 2 seconds. Let's say assume that. It's taking of query execution and returning of data is taking of at least 2 seconds if you are not using cache means, guys. So if you are using cache means, then what it will do, it will store the data. Let's say you are trying to give, you are getting some data from database that you are storing in some memory, some temporary memory. Okay. So next time if you are running up the same query means, next time if you are running the same query, then the Hibernate will not hit the database. Okay. First it will check in the cache. First it will check in the cache memory. If it is available in that query result, then it will return from the cache only. Not, it will not hit the database. Okay. That means that, so because of this cache, the high application performance will be increased. Application performance will be increased. So what are the types of caches? There, how many types of caches are available? So there are two types of caches mainly. So there is third one is there, that will not that much, but first one is first level cache or primary cache or session cache. We will call all it as a, we will call all as a first level cache. We have two types of caches. Okay. One is first level cache. Okay. First level cache means it is whenever you are creating of any session object. From where will create session object? Session factory dot open session. Right. So if you are, whenever you are calling of open session method, that time it will create session object. Along with the session object, it will create one cache that is called session cache or first level cache or primary cache. Okay. Now let's say take one document. Through document we will explain it. Now after that, second level cache or session factory level cache. Second level cache or session factory cache, both will call it as a same. Session factory means, let's say go to our document, go for any one. Okay. Any application that which you have tested, go for it. So what we are doing in the Hibernate session, get the session factory. Okay. It will give off a session factory object. This method is giving off a session factory object. Second level cache is associated with session factory. Okay. Now first level cache is associated with on top of session factory. We are calling of open session. So it is going to return off one session object. Okay. Now whenever you are calling of open session, then it will create one cache that is called first level cache. Okay. Or primary cache or session cache, will call it as that. So what is the purpose of session cache? What is the purpose of second level cache? When we can utilize that? Let's go for some theory and then we'll go for the practical things. Now, Hibernate uses different types of caches. Each type of cache is used for different purposes. Okay, primary cache, first level cache or session cache, second level cache or session factory cache, and third one is one more cache that is called query cache. Okay, that also we'll see one example for that. Now, let's see the first one. Now, whenever you are creating of session, whenever you are creating of session object, let's say we'll take off here, step by step is here, right? The client, yeah. Now in this case, the second level cache will be created. By default, second level cache will not be enabled, guys. So by default, second level cache will not be enabled. This is of second level and this is of first level cache. This is cfg dot build session factory, it will give off session factory object. Okay. Think about, right now you don't know second level cache, only discuss about first level cache. So when first level cache will be enabled, from session factory dot open session means it is going to give off one session object. Okay. That time what it will happen means internally it will create a paint, I think, not word. Yeah, internally it will create of one memory. Internally it will create one memory that is called, just assume, first level cache or session cache. Just assume SCSSI session cache. Okay. Now this cache, what it will do, whatever the operations that we are doing on top of this session object, which session object, session one is there, right? So on top of this object, on top of this object, if you are doing any operations, all that will be stored inside this cache. Let's say first you are getting on data from database, it will store in this cache and it will return the result to us. Okay. Next time if you are trying for the same query with the same employee ID details, then it will not hit the database. First time it will, if it is not available in the session cache, it will hit the database and it will get the data, and first it will store in the session cache and then it will return back to our for us. Okay. Now let's see through examples that we'll see. So every fresh session object that we are getting having its own cache memory. The caching is a mechanism for storing the loaded objects into cache memory. Okay, it is the purpose of storing the loaded objects that are coming from the database to store into this cache memory. The advantage of cache mechanism is whenever again if we want to load the same object from the database. Okay, so if the cache is not enabled, then always it will hit the database. Okay, let's say at a time, let's say 1,000 people are calling the database, then obviously we will get up some slow response. Instead of that, if you are adding, if you are storing the data in the cache, if people are trying multiple times the same query, means it will get from cache memory itself instead of hitting the database. Then instead of hitting the database once again, so it will load from the same object from the database, then instead of hitting to the database again, now it loads from the local cache only, not from the database. So that what is the purpose of now, so that the number of round trips between, means from application to database hittings, the number of round trips between application and database server is got decreased or reduced. So that means that it means caching mechanism increases the performance of the application. Okay. Now let's see some points related to first level cache or session cache. Okay. First level cache or session cache. Now let's first level cache is always associated with session object. That's what I told. Whenever you are creating any session object, means by default it will create a one first level cache associated with that session object. Hibernate uses this cache by default. By default the session cache will be created. If you want to disable also, we can't disable it. Okay, by default it is enabled. So by default, for each Hibernate application, the first level cache is automatically been enabled. Okay, as a programmer, we no need to have any settings to enable the first level cache, and also we can't disable first level cache. It is not in our hand. Okay, if you want to disable also, we can't disable that one. Always it will create, for every session it will create one cache, that first level cache it will create it. Now the first level cache is associated with session object. Scope of the cache is limited to one session only. Okay, so let's say if you are creating of one more session, just assume that if you are creating of another session, then it will hit the database. It will not get from the other cache. Let's say if I am getting of one more session here, dot open session, it will create of one more session, SESSI in session 2. Okay, so the session, this is different. One second, what happened? Yeah, this is one session and this is another session. This cache is, the session cache is different, session 2 cache is different. So if you are doing whatever the operation on session, then all those queries will be getting from session cache second time. So if you are, but the session cache and session 2 cache both are different caches. Let's say this is trying for employee ID 1, this is trying for employee ID 2, just assume that. So Now, if the session already it is trying for one employee ID. If it is trying for session two, if it is available in session two, that will not get it. That is their own cache. Session two cache is separate. Session cache is separate. Okay. Now let's see one example, and then you'll get more clarity, guys. Of here. Hmm. Now, when we load an object from the first time from the database, then the object will be loaded first time from the database, and loaded object will be stored into the cache memory. Okay, maintained by session. Now, next time, if we load the same object once again within the same session, remember, guys. Now, then the object will be loaded from the local cache, not from the database. Now, let's see the example. Let's see the example. I'll explain this one soon, this note. Now let's go to first level cache. Close all, go to first level cache. Now I created of one model class, employee and address is there. Just assume employee class and address class, there is some data is there. Okay. Now to load the data, now let's see. First, what I'm doing, I've created of one session factory object. From the session factory object, what I'm doing, I created of one session. I created of one session that is called session object, right? If you want to change this session to different session, then we will modify. Just assume that this is session one. Okay. Now from this session, I've started the transaction. First, what I'm doing, I'm getting one employee ID whose employee ID is one. I'm trying to get from database. I'm trying to get the data from database. Let's disable this. Guys, here one thing. In the logs, if the query is displaying means it is Hibernate is hitting the database to get the result. Okay. Now Now I am debugging this one, guys. First, what I am doing, I'm using session. I'm using the session to load employee ID 1. After 10 seconds, I kept my execution is 10 seconds waiting time. After that, I'm doing again same employee ID. I'm trying to load once again. I'm trying to load same employee ID once again from the database, but it won't hit the database. Now let's see. Let's okay. Let's keep it for some time. Yeah. What I'm doing? So I'm doing here two times. I'm doing the same employee ID details loading. Okay. Now load it. Let's see how many times the query will display here. Observe it. If the query is displaying here means that time it is getting data from database. Okay. Here we are trying to get the data from two times with the same ID. Right. Where is that? Let's wait. Session dot load off. Yeah, now let's see here. Yeah, get employee ID with one. Okay. Now this is the query. It got executed. If you want, see the query is executed once means first time it is hitting the database and getting the data. Right. First time it is hitting the database query and then it is printing of employee details. After 10 seconds waiting, fetch the same data again. I called off same query again. Session dot load of employee new long of one. So this time it is not hitting the database. It is getting query data from database. What it is happened means once this is completed, this execution, once this line execution is completed, what it will do means, okay, the session object is there, right? In this session, one cache will be created. Just assume of this one. Okay, just assume loading employee data with ID 1. Employee data employee emp data with id 1. id 1 is loaded into cache. Okay, now after execution of this one, so while executing of this code again, while loading employee id, loading load method with employee with new long of 1, again it is trying for same employee id from the database. It is trying first. What it will check, session will check first. What session will check, it will check in the session, in the session cache, is there any result with employee id 1 is available or not. With employee table employee 1, if it is there here, then what it will do, it will get the data from here and then it will return it. That is the reason only it is not hitting the database directly, we are printing it. Okay, now let's say for suppose I have created of another session. Just assume another session I have created. This session is different and the session factory that open session of another session. So for this session, again it will create of one more cache. This is of session 2 cache. Okay, this is of session 2 cache. Right now, from the session 2 cache, I am trying to load off from the session 2 cache. I am trying to load session 2 dot load of employee with same one number, with the employee ID is 1. So what it will check, session 2, it will check in this cache. In this cache, is there any employee data with employee ID 1 is available or not? We don't have anything here right now, first time, right? So what it will do, first time it will load from the database and then it will keep the data into this cache. Okay, now let's see. I have enabled this one. Now let's see this time. Here also it will load one more time. So third time employee 2 with ID is 1. Let's see the query. In this line, the query will execute from the database. Hibernate will execute query. Right. Yeah. Now let's open and what has happened? Yeah, it is waiting 10 seconds, guys. It is waiting 10 seconds. See, it is not completed. Now this is first time. This is first time the query executed with the session. First time query executed with session. Okay, and second time the same object is loaded, so it is getting from first level cache of session. This up to this we have seen that, right? After that, creating new session. I have created of one more session 2. For this, one more cache is created, but there is no data in this cache, right? So what we are doing, we are loaded off once again the new data. It is hitting database. It is hitting database and then it will store inside session 2 cache here again. Will store in this emp data with id 1 is loaded to cache. Just assume. Okay? Cache, just assume. Now again, so if I am removing, how do I remove? So already this object is there. If I want to remove that object from the session, the employee id 1, then there is a method called evict method. If you want to remove a particular employee object, let's say assume one more data is there with employee id 10, one more data with employee id 30, like that. Let's say 100 elements is there, 100 employees data is there. If you want to remove any particular employee id data from the session, then what we can do, there is a method called evict method. Okay, now let's see this. Now from the session, I'm loading off one more object. Okay, it is id 2 session. This is session. from the session only two times I did. First time only one, second time also one. But this is the first time I'm loading session 2 with value ID is 2. So this time it will hit the database. Okay. Now after that, what I am doing? After this, what I am doing? Let's observe session.evict of EMP. EMP means what is the value of EMP means let's see, it is employee ID 1. Employee ID with 1 I am deleting from here. Employee ID I am deleting from here. Let's see first, it will load. Which session I am using? Session, not session 2 guys. I am using session only. That means in this object, in this session. Do you have any employee data with 2 ID 2? No. So that means it will load from the database and it will store inside this cache. Now let's run it. In this from this session, employee ID 1 data is removing by calling evict of emp. So here I'm checking in the session contains employee ID 1 or not. If it is giving false means it is not there. Okay. Now let's see whether it is. Waiting 10 seconds. Session 1 will call for fourth time one more query. Fourth time for employee 3, it is calling database because employee with employee ID 2, there is no data in the cache. Okay. This time we got the data and then it will keep the data into the session. Okay. Now let's add off this one EMP data with ID 2 is loaded to cache. Now, and after this, it is deleting. After this, what we are doing? Session.evict of employee. So, after this, what I did? Session.evict of employee 1. This employee 1 data I am deleting from the session. Okay? By calling of evict method. I am just assume that I have deleted it. Okay? By calling of evict method. So if you are trying again for the employee ID 1 by using of this session means, so obviously it will hit the database because the data which is there in the session, it is removed by calling of evict method. Right? Now let's see this one. Yes. Now observe these two. This is first session only. After evicting of this, here it will call again the database because this employee object is deleted. Now again, if I am loading by using that same session, then here it will call the database and session 2 is already loaded before. Session 2 is already loaded using a session. Already here, session 2 data is there only. If you are trying again, if we are trying again here, we are trying one more time again at the sixth time. That time it won't hit the database. Okay. Now let's see, run it. It is the first time. Okay, fifth time it will call query. Sixth time it won't call because in fourth time it is executed. See, fifth time, fifth time it is calling database, right? It is calling database to get the data. Okay. Now sixth time it is not calling because sixth time what it is doing, employee ID 2. Employee ID 2 is already loaded before with the session. So that is the reason it is not calling again to the database from the session. From here it is picking it. Now after executing of this one, after executing of this again it is added that. Again it is added here first employee data, emp data with id 1 is loaded to cache, just assume. Okay, that's what. Now next, if you want to delete if you want to delete all the objects which is let's say 100 is there, 100 objects you want to remove from the session, then there is a method called session dot clear. Session dot clear. Now, so till now already we have two objects is there, id1 and id2, right? So after clearing of this one, after clearing this one, either these two times, session dot 1 and 2, session dot 1 and 2, these two times it will call the database again. Okay, because in this line we are clearing all the session. Okay, after clearing the session, if you are trying the data for employee 1 and employee 2, again it will call two times the query. Okay, after clearing obviously it has to call, right? So but again in the employee 8th time, this time, so already it is loaded once, so it will not call again in this case. Now, seventh time it will hit the query, and eighth time it will hit the query, but at ninth time it won't hit the database. Now let's expand it. 10 seconds. Yeah. Now let's say it is of seventh time the query is executed. Right? See, the seventh time the query is executed and it is printed. Eighth time query is executed and it is printed. And ninth time it is not hitting the database because that is getting from in this cache here, from here. Already is loaded to cache, right? So it is loading from in this cache. Okay, this is what first level cache, guys. Okay, now when do we need go for a second level cache? This is what first level cache. Okay, now by default first level cache is enabled. Okay, now even if you want to disable also, we can't do that. Okay, now go to that point which I said the note. The loaded objects will be stored into the cache memory maintained by the session object. If you want to remove the objects from the objects that are stored in the cache memory, then we need to call evict method or clear method. Actually, evict method is used to remove particular object from the cache, and clear is used to remove all objects from the memory. Okay, both we have tried. Okay. Now next, second level cache. So till now, first level cache by default is enabled. Second level cache by default it will not be enabled. Second level cache by default it will not be enabled. If you want to enable, then we need to do some extra configuration. That is what extra configurations that we need to do. From where it is enabled means, where it is introduced means, from Hibernate 3.0 version onwards, the second level cache feature was introduced. What exactly the second level cache means? Let's say these are multiple sessions. A session factory can contain multiple sessions. Now, if you are enabling session factory or second level cache, then it will create a separate session second level cache. Separate second level cache. Second level cache, second level cache. So let's say first I am user of session 1 and getting of employee 1 details here. Okay, and by using session 2 I have loaded of session 2 data, employee ID 2 data. Now that time what it will do, the data will be stored, employee ID will be stored in the session, employee ID 1 will be stored in the session cache as well as second level cache. Employee ID 2 data will be stored in the session 2 and second level cache. First, what it will check, if any session that I am trying to get data with the session or session 2. First it will check in the first level cache. Okay, let's say employee session is this session is trying for employee ID 2. Okay, that assume employee ID 2 is not here. Just assume of that this is 2. Just assume this is 2. Now from by using session I loaded employee 1 data, and by using session 2 I loaded employee 2 data. Okay, now if you are enabling second level cache, now this employee 1 data will be stored one copy here and one more copy here also. One more copy will be stored in emp data with ID 1. Okay. Now, while executing of this one copy will store in the first level cache, one more copy will store in the second level cache. Okay. Now, session 2 is also loaded employee ID 2 data. So, first it will store in the session 2 or first level cache, and one more copy it will store in the second level cache. Here it will store it. emp data with ID 2. Okay. Now, if session 1, this session is trying to load session 2 data, so first it will check in the first session. It is not there. Only employee ID 1 data is there. If it is not there, then it will go to second level cache. In the second level cache, if employee ID with 2 is there, then it will load from second level cache. It will not hit the database. Even if it is not here in the second level cache also, if the data is not there, then only it will hit the database. Okay, that is what second level cache. Let's read it and then we'll see practically also. Second level cache was introduced in Hibernate 3.0. Whenever we are loading any object from the database, then Hibernate verifies whether that object is available in the local cache of that particular session. Okay, if you are using session means in this session first it will check if it is there. If it is means first level cache, if it is not there in this cache, if it is not there, then Hibernate verifies whether that object is available in the global cache or factory cache or session cache. It will check in the second level cache. If it is there here, then it will return here. Else, if it is not available in the second level cache also, then Hibernate will hit the database and loads that object. Okay, if it is not there in the second level cache also, and using of session, okay, it loads that object from database, and first it will store in the local cache of the session. First it will store one copy in the session, and then one more copy in the second level cache also it will store it. Okay, next time if any other session is trying to load off employee ID 3 data, then it will get from second level cache. Okay, that's what it is here. If whenever when another session is need to load the same object from the database, then Hibernate copies that object from global cache. Okay, then object it will copy from second level cache. It will copy to that particular cache and then it will return. Okay, now let's see. There are multiple vendors are provided this second level cache. Out of that, the first one is EH cache, means easy Hibernate cache. This is from Hibernate guys are released it. Other one is Open Symphony, Spam cache, Tree cache. There are multiple caches there. This is the open source one. Most people will use it. Now let's take off example for second level cache. Go to close it. Second level cache. Yes. Clear it. Now here what we are doing is employee and address. Employee and address table. Just assume this line is required to enable second level cache. Annotation wise, this annotation is also required. Cache usage equal to cache concurrency strategy dot read only or transactional or not read. So there are multiple options is there. we can use if I want to read the data. Okay, and this region why it is required, I'll tell you soon. Okay, there is no extra things here, just employee data is there and address data is there. Okay, in these two POJO classes. Now write our program. Write our program. Here what I am doing first, I am getting of session factory. Okay, so from the session factory we can create of multiple session. Let's assume of session 1 and another session. Two sessions I have created. Session factory at open session, it is giving of session object. Session factory at open session, it is giving of one more session. I kept the name as other session. Right? Now both sessions are started the transactions. Okay, now first I am loading by using the session object. I am loading one object by using the session object. I am loading one object, and second time also I am loading. Okay, in this case it will load from first level cache. In this case it will load from first level cache. Next what I am doing, now in this case clear it, file, new, don't save it. Yeah, now what I am doing here is I have created two sessions. Okay, two sessions I have created and one second level session. All are enabled. Now let's see. This is of second level cache. Okay. Now this is of other cache session. Just assume other session cache. Okay, other session cache. This is of session cache. Just assume this one is session cache. Okay, now what I am doing first line, I am loading of an employee data with id is 1, employee id 1. So what it will do in this line, in this line what it is doing, first it will hit the database and it will load that object. It will load that object into emp id with 1. Emp id with 1 it will load. Okay, it will call here. What it will do, first it will load into first level cache. Okay, and one more copy it will store here also, employee emp id with emp emp data emp id with 1 loaded. Just assume loaded data. Second level cache is there, first level cache is there. Okay, now again what I am doing, again I am loading same object. Again I am loading same session object, guys. Session is same, so that time first it will check in the session. In the first level cache it will check it if it is available here. Okay, if it is available here, then it will load from here itself. Okay, it will load from here itself without going to second level cache and Hibernate. Okay, after that what I am doing, session dot evict of employee. So from this I am deleting it. From this I am deleting it. It is available only in the second level cache. Okay, in this time, in this case it will load the data. Okay, clear the first level cache, so it will pick from second level cache will be used. In this case it is removing here. In this session if it is not there with employee ID 1 data, then it will check in the second level cache. If it is second level cache it is there, it will load from here. Even in this case also it will not hit the database. Okay, because it will get from second level cache. Okay, now next in this line, so do we have in this line, do we have employee id 3 data, employee id 3 data? If it is not there, it will load here again. It will load employee id emp id with data, emp id with 3 data. Just assume emp id with 3 data. Here also emp data with id 3. Okay, emp id with 3. Okay, now again I am using of other session. In this case it will load from database because first time we are loading. Okay, that time it will store one copy here and one more copy in the second level cache. Okay, now in the other session I am loading of employee id 1. So in this right now we don't have any data, right? So it is trying to, this session is trying to load employee ID 1 data. First it will check in this session, first level cache. If it is not there, it will check in the second level cache. Yes, in the second level cache it is there, employee ID 1 data. It will get from second level cache instead of hitting the database. In this case also, it won't hit the database. So out of all these things, out of all these things, how many times the data is hitting to database? Only one time, sorry, two times. One is for one id, one is for three, one is for employee id 3. Now let's execute it. Even if you are trying to load that employee id 1 value with other session also, it is getting from second level cache. Okay. See here, this is for employee ID 1, and all these three times we are displayed employee ID 1 data. It is not hitting even though we are removing from the session. Okay, it is getting from second level cache, this one employee ID 1. Now for displaying of employee ID 3, it is hitting the database and we are displaying it. After from other session, we are getting employee ID 1 data, that is coming from second level cache, right? It is not hitting the database. Okay, this is what second level cache. There are other configurations that we need to do for second level cache enablement. Means in the go to resources file, in this configuration we are added some extra things that is called these are for enabling second level cache. Okay, this I'll tell you some more things about it. Okay, cache that provider class is I'm using of cache. I said there are some vendors that are provided for cache mechanism, right? Out of that, cache is one of that. I have taken cache provider class. Which class is going to enable that second level cache? cache provider class, and we need of cache region factory. Even these two is required, and we are using of second level cache enable is true is required. Okay, these three properties compulsory. And what is the need of this one? Okay, by default it will take up some, how much time you want to store that data in the second level cache and first level cache is there, right? So that configuration we can configure inside this xml file, that is called my cache. How long? Let's say 1000 objects is there. Okay, this is the default configuration for ideal time is, if ideally that object is available in 120 seconds, then it will remove from the second level cache. Okay, time to leave seconds 120. How much, how many objects it can store? 10,000 it can store. Like this, what is the memory, external, local disk, all those configuration that we are default configuration of cache, second level cache. Okay. No. So if you want to store some particular object, let's say some employee object, I want to store 600 seconds in the second level cache. So I am modifying this default configuration. So this name I am using cache region name. I said, right. I'll tell you later. I told you, right. This name I will use. Okay. This name I will use in the employee and address. See, region equal to employee, that we need to use this name here. Come down. Whenever we are loading off this employee object, so it will be available in the cache 600 600 seconds ideal time. Okay, and live time also 600 seconds. It will be available in the second level cache. After that, we need to load. It will load from database again if you are trying to hit the same data. Okay, that's what this configuration, guys. If you're, we can override these timings. Okay, if you're giving out 30 seconds means in the second level cache it will be available only for 30 seconds only, that the employee data. After that it will hit the database. Okay, that's what so there is one more product without for this I am not used any, where is this, not this. Yes. So for this, I'm not used of any. I'm not used of any region. I'm not used of any region here. Just to enable second level cache in the POSO class level. There is no region. So that time it will consider of default cache configuration. If you are overriding that, we can override it. For in this case, I have overrided. But in this product case, I didn't override it. So it will take off default cache configuration. Okay. Even in this case also, we will get the data. Now let's see. So what we are using? Session 23. Again session 23. Other session I'm loading. It will get from second level cache. Not it will hit only one time. Even though two sessions that we are using, it will hit only one time to the database. Let's see. See, in this case also product time also only first time it is called. Next time onwards, in this case it is getting from the session cache, and in this case it is getting from second level cache. Okay, this is what second level cache, guys. Okay, now next one is these are the configuration I said we need to use of that. First, for enabling of second level cache compulsory, this is required. Okay, next one that I have given. Next, query caching. Okay, let's say we are executing of some 100 queries. We are executing some 100 queries. If I want to enable of only one query, if I want to enable of only one query cache, only one query should be cacheable data. I want to execute of one query data only should be cacheable. Then in that case, we can use of query cache. Okay, how to enable that? For this, second level cache also compulsory required. Along with that, we need of this property. Along with that, we need this property. Let's go to query level cache. So go here. So along with that, it will be enabled of one more query cache. See, this property is also required to enable of query cache along with other things. Here in this case, I didn't use of ehcache.xml because I don't want of that own configuration for ehcache configuration. Default is enough for me. That is the reason I didn't added that ehcache XML file. Now, let's go to example. This is of some employee object. This is of some employee object. Now, I have used of this one. Let's go to this employee query. Write it. What I am doing here? First, I am loading of all the employees data. First, I am loading session data. Create query of I am writing of some HQL query. HQL query I am writing. So after that, what I am doing? It is writing of query. Query dot set cacheable. There is a method is there. Set cacheable. There is a method is there. If you are giving us true means, then it will keep that result in the session. Okay. Sorry. So it will all the data is there in the session. Okay. Now one more line. What I am doing? Let's enable. Go up. In the second time. This is the first time. Next second time calling of employee ID 2 data. But session is same. Session is same. Employee ID 2 data I have getting. And this is cacheable. Parameter ID is 2 and it is also cacheable. Okay. Now employee ID 3 again I tried. In this case, it is same method I called one more time with ID is 2. One more time with ID as 2 I called. Right, with one more time with by passing same value. In this case it is not calling the database because we are enabled query cache in the while calling with id as 2. Okay, now while calling of get 3 method, see, we are calling get 3 method, get employee of by 3 by passing employee id 3. I'm getting the data two times. I'm calling by passing same 3, but in this the query cache is not enabled. So in this case what it will do, employee id 3 it will call two times, it will hit the database and then it will get the data. Okay, Now let's see all the scenarios. First, go first. Yeah. First it is for getting of all employees. There is no where condition, right? It is of employee list. Okay. Next, it is of employee list I am getting. I'm printing it. Okay. After that, I'm calling of get employee method by passing ID 2. Okay. Now this is hitting the data where employee equal to 2. It is giving ID is equal to A is equal 30, salary is equal 30,000. Again, I am calling off one more time. Okay, employee ID 2. It will hit again. It won't hit the database. See, it is directly it is printing because it is getting from the query cache level. Okay. Now next see it is of employee ID 3. Okay, this employee ID 3 in this method the query cache is disabled. Query cache is disabled. So obviously if you are trying to call off one more time this employee ID method, first time it is hitting the database and getting off the employee ID 3 data. Okay, after that one more time it is hitting the database and getting off employee ID 3 data. So that means that it is hitting of multiple times if you are disabling of query cache. Okay, that's what the query cache guys. You can leave out other things. No worry. Two times it is calling it. Get employee ID 3. Okay, this is what query cache guys. Okay. Now I have given that examples also. I will set it. This is the only the change that is required for enabling of query cache guys. Set cacheable method is there. We need to pass either true or false. Okay. By default it will be false. If you want to enable it, set cacheable of true. You need to pass it. This is what Hibernate guys. So maybe for today Hibernate is enough. Tomorrow we'll start off Spring guys. Okay. I'll meet tomorrow again. Will. Bye.